G'day. How you doing? So I'm just trying to adjust me here. All right. How you going there this morning? I've had an interesting evening. Uh, Last night I was able to capture. You might remember my video going back on micro strands, which are these elements that they pump out the back of chemtrails that get everywhere. They float on the air and they create like a dust that you can't really see unless you shine a torch in a dark room. You might be able to notice them, or get a laser and you'll see them coming out through there. But essentially, last night, the same old rigmarole, which is the pattern that they use. They, the old they, good old they, huh? What would we do without them? And essentially, here's the story. As soon as you lay down, you start, for some people, those people who are on the list, you start to get this vibration occurring, what feels like vibration, like pulsed vibration. And a lot of people put this down to microwave, um, and it's not microwave. I've proven now that these elements exist. I've shown you that in my previous video. If you haven't seen it, go and check it out. What we're actually dealing with here is microstrands, which are enlivened with radio frequency, and I can be very specific. The radio frequency sits between the band of 150 megahertz to around 400 megahertz, and it is just noise. It's not like a set frequency. And I've got a theory. The science backs this up. Essentially, you have what is called different. You have different lengths on these elements essentially. So all these strands are at different lengths, and you have what's called a resonant frequency. And when the size of the actual when what these act as antennas, they are highly conductive, so they be metal doped carbon nanotubes. So essentially, the way this works is that if you have a single one of these strands and you send it the right frequency, it enlivens the air. It acts as an antenna and enlivens that and creates an electrical field around around the antenna, effectively funneling electricity into the body. So if you have these elements sitting on your skin, or they're in your bed, and then you lay down on the bed and you've got them in contact with the body, and then they're sending this frequency that actually enlivens the antenna and creates an electrical field. And basically, that's what we're dealing with. And so people think they're getting microwaved or they're being hit by these waves. No, it's really no different to your radio station. The only difference is that the aerial's not on your radio device. The aerial is on your skin, and you are being charged through all these elements because we're talking millions of these little strands everywhere. And my guess too is that this is not an ambient thing. I don't think they're just broadcasting outward over a city or an area. I think they direct this at certain people in order to create disruption for those people. Because the timing is too like I've observed last night. I was able to capture exactly when this switches on, and it was exactly like this. I'd have a clean. I'd be observing a range, and I'd have a clean line. There was nothing unusual. It was just normal EMF noise. And then as soon as I put my feet up to lay down, bang! All of a sudden, there's all this peaks occurring, and they're all in bands. Like there was like 10 different broadcasts, all simultaneous, all about 2.5 megahertz divisions, all at roughly about 10 bands, all about 1 megahertz wide. So that's like an FM transmission. And essentially, this creates the disruption. This creates the energy inside these aerials that make it feel like that you've got crawling on the skin. You gotta think, our nerve endings go out to the skin. And if you've got stuff on those endings, it'll spider, that energy will go into those channels and feed back into the body. And this can feel like, you've got crawling on you, or, and then they also pulse it. It's not just a fixed frequency. They're not just sending a sine wave at a fixed frequency, which probably feel just like a field, but they pulse it and they move them. And the different elements, the different lengths get enlivened based on which ones match the resonant frequency or frequencies that are being transmitted at any given point in time. This is great. This is a great breakthrough to have come up with an understanding of what we're dealing with. There's the good news is you're not being microwaved when this is happening. This is not microwave. This is just the same as a radio station, and it's barely stronger than what the radio stations are broadcasting, if at all. It's about the same. So it's about as dangerous in terms of it's the frequency is about as dangerous as your AM or FM radio station. In terms of disruption, though, and real sleep deprivation, which is what it's causing, that's a crime against humanity. And that's clearly listed in the UN, that our right to sleep is actually a right, and anyone who's disrupting that and causing sleep deprivation is actually committing a crime against humanity. And so this isn't all right. That's not all right. I don't give a damn whether you think that it's okay because it's not going above your EMF guidelines or whatnot. I knew that it wasn't going above the EMF guidelines, because otherwise you'd get found out straight away. So essentially it's just a trickery. It's another little illusion, another little Copperfield moment for our establishment, which uses these little annoyances to chip away at people who they don't want succeeding. And of course you get all the people online talking about how they're being microwaved and all these wonderful stories and these things crawling on them and all that sort of stuff. Oh, no, it's just dust being enlivened with frequency. That's what we're talking about. So this is a good little follow-up anyway to my other video, which shows all those particulates and so on, and proves, this proves pretty much, that that's how it's being done. The bad news is, using something like a blocker or something that throws out a broad spectrum of EMF noise will not solve this problem. If you send out, try and over broadcast on the same frequencies that these particles are enlivened at, all you're doing is contributing to the energy being passed into the body. So therefore, you're worse off if you broadcast over the top of the same frequencies. You're just helping it. And so I was able to, in a dead space, just broadcast on top the same frequencies, just as a sweep. And I can feel, as it goes through that, I can feel the field. So I was inducing the same effect that they induce from long range. I'm not sure where those frequencies are coming from, whether it's just, megahertz. Like I said, between 150 megahertz and around 450 megahertz is what I observed. They could go up higher than that. They might go into other spectrums, like up to 1 gigahertz, who knows, or more. And of course, the higher it gets, the smaller the elements that are being enlivened. So long elements use a lower frequency, and then they move as they get longer. As those aerials get longer, the frequency gets lower. But as the aerials get smaller, so the smallest ones are enlivened by higher frequencies. There's a lot of things that can generate these frequencies. The satellites could do it. Cell towers, radio, ham radio. It's like they could make it come off the power grid. Maybe the frequency's coming off the power grid. And that's quite possible, and very likely, in fact. Because I did observe that there's a lack of these frequencies occurring outside. When I take my meter and have a look outside, I don't seem to get them. Whereas inside, there's a lot of noise. And so that's possibly why you get those sensations more while you're inside as opposed to outside. That's all I've got today. I just thought I'd do this little update so that everyone is aware and people can breathe a bit easier. Unfortunately, yeah, blocking, either inverting the signal, a phase shift to cancel it out, is a solution. The other one would be to block it, which would require a Faraday cage. For people who have their own homes, I'd suggest in your bedroom, EMF paint on the walls, earth it, get EMF film for your windows, EMF curtains, or one of those canopies above the bed, even if you don't own your home, would be pretty effective in avoiding or reducing these effects. Cool. All right. Ciao.